I'm Tess. I am the face behind My Sweet Tooth Bakery, and today I'm going to give you a quick tutorial on how to take your dough for your artisan Dutch oven bread from tub to oven and from oven to cutting board. It's a simple process. You need to see it to understand it. So what I have here, I have my 6-quart tub that I made my dough in. This has been in here for about 3 days. I've already made 1 loaf out of this, so if you can see, it would have been a little bit higher. I used to, when I first started making dough, I would put it in a bowl, but it started getting really high and it didn't have a lid and I had to mess with the saran wrap, and so it's so much easier to do it in the tub. You don't have to worry about running out of room, and it sits there. You've got the lid that you can put right on it and you're good to go. So the first thing that you're going to do, you have to take about a pound of dough out of here. You'll want to get some flour your hands, sprinkle a little bit of flour over the top, and this has been fermenting in the refrigerator, so the biggest thing you want to be careful of is that you don't start popping and pulling apart all of the air pockets that have been forming, the gases that are in here. That is what will help you to not have to knead this. This is a no knead bread. It's an artisan bread that is just from tub to oven, and it's just amazingly simple. So I use this to help me separate it from the tub. As I separate it, I sprinkle a little bit of flour to help with the stickiness. And I don't need to separate all of it. I just need to get enough to cut off the piece for what I'm going to cook. And so today I want about 1 pound. So I'm going to, I use this bowl here. I'm going to flour some more, get the tub out of the way. That will go back into the refrigerator and sit and ferment some more until I'm ready to use it. So liberally put flour on here so that you can manipulate this without it sticking. You want to gently shape it. You can use a little more flour. You're just folding it nice and easy until you get a really nice round loaf shape. Can you see that? Look how pretty that is. Oh my gosh. So I'll just set it here for just a moment because I do need to flour. This is a proofing basket. This, if you use a proofing basket, when you finish and you take your loaf out of here and put it into the oven to bake, this is what helps you get those beautiful flour rings that you see. You've probably seen it in some of my pictures on the website, on Instagram. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm on Instagram at mysweettooth_bakery.com. So just nice and get a lot of flour into all the grooves. If you can see that, I don't have to worry about the top grooves because the loaf is not going to rise up even close to that. This next step, I can just spread the flour right on top because I need flour to do what is called a gluten coat or cloak. This will help to keep everything inside and it won't dry out. Shape it just a little bit more. When you use the proofing basket, you can see how it's got seams underneath, but that's okay. You want to put it right there in the middle of the proofing basket. Coat it with even just a wee bit more flour, and that's it. It sits in the proofing basket for 40 minutes for a 1 pound loaf. I'm going to get flour on my face, I know it. For a 1 pound loaf, about 40 minutes. If you're doing a 1.5 pound loaf, 43, 45 minutes. A 2 pound loaf is pretty big. You would want to go up to around 50 minutes. If you don't have a proofing basket, it's okay. You can do the very same thing with this bowl. I would have oiled this a little bit. I would have taken the same dough loaf now and put it in here and then just leave it on the counter for 40 minutes. So now that that is sitting there, the miracle worker for this kind of bread is the Dutch oven. This is a 6-quart Lodge Dutch oven. It's it's just a beautiful thing. That's about all I can tell you. You want to put this, if you can see me, I'm going to take the lid off of the Dutch oven, put it on the rack, take the rest of the Dutch oven, the bottom, put it on the rack beside it. Make sure that your rack is in the middle of the oven. When I first started making bread, I had it in the lower portion of the oven. I don't know, for years I have used put the rack a little bit lower rather than in the center. For this, for making bread, you have to have it in the middle of the oven. The bottom of the oven is the hottest part, and if you have it too low, what you will get when you take your bread out is a scorched bottom. By having it in the middle of the oven and then putting your loaf on parchment paper before it goes into the Dutch oven, there's no scorching. So I've got, you probably can't see it, but I've got the Dutch oven, and you still can't see it. In there, I'm going to set the temperature now for 475 and hit start. This is going to bake at a high temperature. Your bread is going to bake at 475. Do I have flour? So that's going to heat up the whole time that this is resting. The Dutch oven is preheating in the oven. By the time I put the bread dough in the oven, that Dutch oven will be piping hot. Other prep work, done with the flour for now. You want a piece of parchment paper. You want it to be big enough so that when your dough is sitting in the middle of it and you put this inside the Dutch oven, that you have extra so you can grab the ends, because that Dutch oven is going to be really, really hot. And by having it bigger, you can grab onto the ends to put it in and to put it out. So I've got my parchment paper. I've got cornmeal. And I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of cornmeal on here. This is just prep work for later. I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to say, Alexa, set timer for 40 minutes.
40 minutes, starting now.
All right, so this is going to sit. I'm going to wait. And while I am cleaning up and letting that do its thing, just another couple of tips. When it comes to making the dough, which was already done, just to go over a few things that are on the recipe on the website page. The full recipe will make 4 loaves, 4 1-pound loaves. To do that quantity, you would use 3 cups of water. It will be lukewarm water, 95 to 100 degrees. If you have a thermometer, they're really handy for this particular task because you can just tell what the temperature is. Lukewarm will be about your body temperature, give or take a little bit, so that can help you gauge too. So anyway, it'll be 3 cups of lukewarm water, 1 tablespoon of yeast. You put the water in the tub, you sprinkle the yeast in the tub, then you add your 6½ cups of flour. It is regular all-purpose flour. Nothing fancy for this one. It does not have to be bread flour. It does not have to be self-rising. It is just flour. And 1 to 1½ tablespoons of salt. Put it all in here. You don't need anything to mix it except your hand. Just sit here, mix it together. Once everything is blended and all of the dry flour has been moistened, that's it. You put your cover loosely because it's going to build up gases. So you need to let it have some air. So when you are making the dough for the first time, what you will do, once this is made up, I leave it right there. and I let it sit for 2 hours, and I go read a book or who knows what. And I just let it sit for 2 hours. Once the 2 hours is up, I still leave the lid a little bit loose. I put it in the refrigerator and I let it go. It stays overnight. This dough is best, this bread is best if you let the dough ferment at least overnight. It can ferment in the refrigerator for up to 14 days. So if you make a full batch over the next 2 weeks, I will use up that dough and probably make a new batch. The measurements are in cups and tablespoons and teaspoons, but if you have a food scale, a kitchen food scale, it is the best way to make sure that your flour and water quantities are as close to exact as you can get them. So for now, I'm going to clean up, let this sit for another 35 minutes or so, and then we'll resume and go to the next step. Welcome back. This is part 2 of getting your Artisan Dutch oven bread loaf finished and into the oven and from the oven to the table. If you watched the last video, you'll know that right now the Dutch oven is in the oven, preheating at 475 degrees. The dough loaf has been resting in my proofing basket. If you can see, it has not risen much at all. It has not even come close to doubling in size. All it's really been doing is coming closer to room temperature. It came out of the refrigerator, it was chilled, and so it's just resting and warming up a little bit. That's all we want it to do right now. So the next stage is it involves a little more flour. You've got your parchment paper here with the cornmeal spread on the bottom so that the dough won't stick. So this is the most tricky part. First thing, make sure you have heavy duty oven mitts. You have to take the Dutch oven out of the oven. It is hot. You do not want to burn yourself. So I've got the lid next to the Dutch oven in there. I'm going to take the lid out, set it on my stove. I'll bring the hot Dutch oven over here. I have a pizza stone that I'm going to set it on so that it doesn't ruin the counter. And then we'll get to the next step. Hot lid. Hot Dutch oven. I'll close up the oven so that it doesn't lose too much heat. Put these very close by so that I don't forget them. I'll take some more flour, dust the top of this, make sure my hand is floured, and I don't want to airdrop this. I am being very, very, very gentle. I have excess flour, so I'll even dump it right over here so I can go back in. I need to let the dough ball ease out and onto my hand. Yeah, it's a little sticky. Come on. Here you go. All right. It's got some of those flour markings, which is good. Set it right here. I use kitchen shears to just put a little more of a baker's mark right there. It's starting to spread a little bit, so you don't want to leave it sitting there too long. I put it in my Dutch oven. Careful, please remember, this is really, really hot. I just put a little bit of the folds of the paper, if I can, out of the way so they won't affect the rising of the loaf. Put my mitts back on. Put the lid on. Carry it over, it's covered. On the rack in the middle of the oven. And tell Alexa, Alexa, set timer for 25 minutes.
25 minutes, starting now.
Okay, so what's going to happen right now? The bread is in the oven in a closed Dutch oven. What that's doing is creating steam. In professional baking ovens, there is a capacity where they can actually inject steam. If you're cooking it in your own oven and you want steam, the old-fashioned traditional way is you put a broiler pan with some water in the bottom of the oven. But by using the Dutch oven, you don't have to mess with any of that, because with the lid on and because it's so hot, once you close it in there and put it in the oven, it does an oven pop, an oven rise. So while it's sitting in there, all the gases are starting to just make it rise up and out, and that'll stay in there for 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, I put my mitts back on. I go and take the lid off of the Dutch oven. I take the lid out, put it on my stove and out of the way, close my oven door back up, and I let it bake uncovered in the Dutch oven for another 25 minutes. At 25 minutes, you check it. You may want to go another 5 minutes. I've actually been going more like 30 minutes lately because I like it nice and caramel toasty dark for the crisp crust. So we have 50 to 55 minutes to go. So I will see you again in a little while when I take it out of the oven. Hey there, we're back for part 3. The best part, this is the part I get such a kick out of. My husband actually wandered in a little while ago because he could smell it from the other room. It smells wonderful in this kitchen. So, time to take it out of the oven. Put your heavy duty mitts on. Turn the oven on. And let's see how this looks. I cooked it for 25 minutes with the lid on. I've cooked it, I think it's about 27 minutes with the lid off. So the paper can get a little crumbly, but there's not far to go. Here's the loaf. Can you see it? Look at those rings. Now, probably got a little manhandled because of doing the video, and I had a little trouble getting out of the proofing basket. Normally it would pop just a little bit higher, but you know what? That's all right. I am happy with this. Let's see what the bottom looks like. Oh, look at that. It could have honestly even stayed in for another 3-4 minutes, get even a little bit more toasty and dark. The darker, sometimes you think it might be burning, but actually it adds another dimension to the flavor of the crust when you can get that sweet spot, not too light but not too dark, not burned but just there. So this has to sit for 2 hours. It smells wonderful. Everybody always wants to cut it ahead of time, but it has more to do right now. Inside, while it's cooling, it's got this crisp, hard case around it, but the dough inside, the crumb inside, is still finishing up as it cools. And if you cut it too soon, you'll end up with a gummy texture almost. Now, I don't think you can hear it. I can hear it. If your loaf is done just right, it will, what they call, sing. It's cracking right now. It's crackling because of its adjustment to the room temperature. So I'm going to be quiet for a second and we'll see. When you do your own, I hope that you get to hear that. It is a joy. Well, I hope this helped you. If you make your own loaf, I'd love to hear your comments, get your pictures. You can find me at mysweettoothbakery.com. I'm on Instagram, mysweettooth_bakery. I am on Facebook, My Sweet Tooth Bakery, and I keep adding new recipes, new instructions, new tips, pretty much every day. So I hope to see you again. Have a great night.